Basically, we're going to talk about getting paid to be you. And a lot of times we don't think that that's the case. We don't think that what we have is enough. But the truth of the matter is, we all have skill sets and abilities. And we want to talk about you getting paid to be you. So, of course, I'm coming from the story of the parable of the talents. And this is talking about where an executive, a business owner, basically had given responsibility to three of his executives and said, listen, I'm going to go away on a sabbatical. And what I want y'all to do is take care of my business for this time. So he gave each one of the executives a talent. And they were to use these talents. And he gave the talents according to the gifts and the abilities of the individual executive. And so this is, of course, symbolic of each of us. You know, a lot of times people believe, well, I don't have any gifts or I don't have any talents or whatever, and so I don't know how I can benefit the world. We all have gifts and we all have talents. It's just us utilizing what it is that we have. And a lot of times those gifts and those talents are really going to come from the challenges and things that we've experienced. You've had an obstacle, something that you overcame, and overcoming that obstacle, you've learned something that somebody else can benefit from. Because understand this, if you have the challenge, someone else also has that same challenge. So what you have to do is look at that challenge and say, listen, how can I benefit the world, individuals, with the gifts and the talents that I have? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about you utilizing your gifts, your talents, your abilities, basically to bless the world. But as a result of blessing the world's going to bless you right back. So we're going to talk about that. But again, we're going to be talking about the gifts of the talents. Now, when we're talking about the talents, these talents are in biblical time when Jesus was telling the story, they were talents of gold that were giving for the purpose of exchange. But these talents were symbolic of the gifts and the abilities within each individual. And like I said, the problem that most of us have is that when it comes to our gifts and our talents, we're going to be using an acrostic called talent, of course, and we're going to go through different things that keep us hung up and not realizing the gifts and the abilities and the talents within us. But my goal is for you to discover, especially now, we're in a time that there's so much uncertainty. And a lot of times we don't realize that, we look on the world without for rescue. And we have within ourselves the tools, the skill sets already. But because we're so close to those gifts, those tools that we have within us, we take them for granted. And like I said earlier, many people look at the gifts and the talents that they have and they say, well, everybody can do this. That's not true. Matter of fact, there's probably a very small minority of people that can do what you do, the way that you do it. And why is this relevant? Because if you realize that, let's use, for example, the Neville Goddard community, because I know that many people, from the Neville Goddard community may be watching, these talks and so forth. We assume, because of course we're in the Neville Goddard community, that everybody other than the Neville Goddard community also know about these principles that is taught by Neville Goddard. But you have to understand that most of the people in the world, when we're talking about 8 billion people, have no clue who Neville Goddard is. It's only people that have come across Neville's talks and have been introduced to the principles and the teachings of Neville Goddard. So my point to you is there's a very small minority of people that understand the tools of Neville Goddard. Why is this relevant for you? Whether in business, whether in your home life, whether you decide on, let's say, coaching, whatever, you can take the principles that you've learned over the last year, 2 years, whatever the duration has been, you learning about the principles of Neville Goddard, and you can begin teaching those principles to other people in whatever community that you're in. Now, all of a sudden, for somebody, you're going to be the first person that told them about the teachings of Neville Goddard. Now, we can look at, Reverend Ike. We can talk about, if you're talking about evangelism, depending upon what your faith is, somebody for the first time is hearing the words that you're speaking, the words that you're teaching for the very first time. And so there's a community out there that you can actually build upon and begin teaching and giving the principles and the skill sets that you have. So my whole point is, you went through some type of trauma, whether it been through health issues or whatever, and you learned how to overcome or even deal with whatever that trauma was. There's a whole group of people that are experiencing the same type of trauma, and they would benefit from what it is that you know if you were willing to share that information with them. So my whole point is, we all have something that other people can benefit from if we're willing and open to sharing that information. So first and foremost, the first letter in the acrostic talents is this, T, and it means, we're going to use the word trust. You have to trust that you have something that you can share with the world. The unwise steward in the story of the parable and the talents, he went and buried his talent. And many of us are doing the same thing with our skill sets. You know, we take those things that we have within us, the things that we've learned throughout life, whether it be for the first 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and we take it for granted because we say, well, nobody's going to appreciate this, nobody's going to be able to utilize this. It's just not true. You have to realize that somebody's going to benefit from the skill sets that you have if you trust that you have something. And one of the things that you can do is take that information and bundle it into a course. For example, help somebody, for example, say that you look extremely young for your age. You can tell people, okay, what were the routines beyond genetics? What are some of those things that you do on a daily basis to keep yourself looking young? And of course, the course can be something like how to, knock 5 years off of your chronological age by doing these 10 things. It doesn't matter what it is that you know. I guarantee it, if we had a conversation, there would be something that you have that you could benefit the world with. So what I'm asking you to do is trust and believe this, that everybody doesn't know what it is that you know. So reflect daily on the abilities. You're doing something right now beyond watching this video. Something's occupying your day. And you've come up with some creative ways. It may be how you basically organize your house, organize your checkbook, balance your checkbook. People are making a great deal of money on teaching other people how to organize their home, how to balance their finances, stuff that you do, how to cook a 5-minute meal. You understand what I'm saying? There's something that you know right now that other people would benefit from. There was a gentleman, and I can't recall his name, but his whole focus on YouTube were tomatoes. He was the tomato farmer, and so he would teach people how to grow tomatoes and so forth. And this guy created a 7-8 figure business by simply talking about tomatoes and other vegetables, and pretty soon he added other products, and it allowed that business to grow. Good to see you. How you doing, Juicy? So you have an ability, you have a talent, you have a skill set. The biggest thing is now you say, well, I don't know what to do with it. Well, that can be worked out, once you decide what that thing is, but first and foremost, realize that you have something that you can offer to the world, and be first and foremost willing to do that. So the first thing is trusting that you have something to offer to the world. And say this, one of the things about John D. Rockefeller, he believed, and a lot of great people, powerful people, great people, so forth, believe that they've been ordained to do what it is that they do. When you believe that you've been touched by the divine, the God within you, to do what it is that you're to be, do, or have, you take on a totally different attitude. So begin to acknowledge that I am entrusted with a purpose, and I'm going to live that purpose out. I'm going to spend the rest of my life living that purpose out. There was a gentleman, he had gotten to the age of retirement, and he received his first Social Security check. And he realized at that moment that he was not going to be able to live off of the money that was given to him in that first Social Security check. So he said he had to do something. He started looking around, Now, he had a gas station, but the road that was bringing customers to that gas station was rerouted. And so he couldn't even entrust that people would make it to his gas station. And so what he started doing is looking and doing an inventory of what he had to offer to the world. One of the things that he offered at his gas station was fried chicken. And he had this system where he had these 7 herbs and recipes, these 7 herbs and spices in his recipe. We all know that that's KFC today, Kentucky Fried Chicken. And the gentleman was Colonel Haddon Sanders. He realized that he could not live off of what Social Security was offering. And he said, listen, at 62 years old, he made a decision. And he said, you know what? I'm going to either be successful or die trying. So what he started doing, he visited literally thousands upon thousands of gas stations and restaurants, basically trying to franchise. First, he had this cooker. So it was a deep fryer and his 7 herbs and recipes. So anybody that decided to take that on, he would get a percentage of that. So he had a subscription program, as it were. What is it that you have? And again, I promise you, if you just took inventory, there's something that you do and you take it for granted. It's a routine that you do on a daily basis. And if you looked at it, you would discover that other people would benefit from that. And even if you don't realize anything at the moment, you don't even have to have an idea. You can take an already existing product, let's say like a Neville Goddard teaching, and personalize it, make it your own, and begin sharing it in your own unique message, and begin helping other people how to utilize and facilitate their mind so they're creating purposefully as opposed to creating haphazardly. Most people don't know, hear what I'm about to say. Most people don't know that thoughts create reality. So even when you say it, it's going to sound like something that's otherworldly, sci-fi. They're going to think that you're crazy because that's not how they've been programmed. They've been programmed to believe that the world without is controlling everything about them in their reality. So when you start teaching on these principles, how mind works, it's going to place you ahead of most of the other people that's in their life. And when you start sharing the principles as you know them, for somebody, you're going to be the very first time that they've heard those principles. We give a lot of credence to Neville, for example, or Reverend Ike, or Dr. Joseph Murphy, or Joe Dispenza, or whomever, when we hear information from them. Because for us, we heard that information from them, and it was the first time that we ever heard it. So we always attribute that information to that individual teacher. When you start teaching this information for somebody, you're going to be the catalyst, the first person that they ever heard talking about what it is that you know. So my whole point is, if you've listened to anything as far as self-help, personal development, or anything for a period of time, you're ahead of 97% of the world, because most people stop learning after high school. So if you're even watching this video, that tells me that you're a learner and that you're growing. You're ahead of most of people. Most people on Sunday, if they can, they're sleeping in or watching TV or watching the game or whatever, and you're trying to increase your learning. You understand what I'm saying? You're ahead of 97% of the population, because most people just don't know this stuff. Even you think that I only know this at a basic level, coach. I don't know all this stuff. You don't have to know all that I know. You could know even more than I know. It's not important. It's you trusting what it is that you have. Again, we're still on T. Trusting what it is that you have and being willing to impart it to the world. Next thing, we're using the acrostic talent, because again, we're using the subject matter of the parable of the talents. So the next letter is A, and A is accountability. So if you're going to do this, if you're going to make a difference in your world, if you're going to start getting paid for what it is that you know, then you have to start becoming accountable. And you may have somebody that you can share with and say, listen, this is the plan that I've made for myself. And so whether that be a coach or that be a personal friend, whatever, Have somebody that you can be accountable for. Create you a calendar and say, okay, on this day here, I'm going to start doing this, creating videos, start writing my book. Whatever that thing is that you've committed to share what it is that you know with the world. So find you an accountability partner and somebody, and like I said, that can be somebody that you know that you can share the things that you know with, and they can reciprocate it. Or, like I said, it may be that you may just go out to something like ChatGPT and create you a accountability partner through AI, or basically getting you a coach, for example, and somebody that can hold you accountable and make sure that you stay on track of what it is that you've committed yourself to do. So track your, as you're doing it, track what it is that you're doing. Track the progress. Make sure that you're on track to do what it is. And let me say this. As you begin to commit to yourself to do certain things, do them. You can always change and say, okay, well, I thought that I was going to be able to do this on a more consistent basis, whatever. Let me take it down instead of doing it every day in the week, maybe 2 or 3 days out of a week. Make that verbal commitment with yourself. Why do I say this? I don't want you to get in the habit of breaking your word to yourself, because once you start doing that, it's going to become easier and easier not to show up. But on the other side of the coin, if you keep showing up, you're going to reap the benefits. Now, just because the benefits don't seemingly show up overnight, they're going to come. And the benefits, not only in potential people looking at what it is that you're offering, the person that you're going to become. As you keep showing up, you're going to keep discovering, you're going to keep learning, you're going to keep growing. So as you keep showing up, what's going to happen is you're going to set a foundation for yourself. Now, early on, it's like when we start a new career. We start a new career and we start at the bottom. And so we may be at the bottom of the pay scale. But as we learn more about that endeavor, whatever it is, then we become more valuable inside that company or outside of that company, inside of that business. I see so many people on TikTok, for example, and on YouTube that continuously show up. And what they've learned in creating material, creating content, editing, so forth, they've now become the expert in that field. And one of the people that come to mind is a gentleman by the name of Mr. Beast. When Mr. Beast started out at the age of 11 or 12 trying to make videos for video games and so forth, he was terrible. But he kept showing up. He kept improving. In doing so, people started paying him money to create videos. And his first venture that he was going to do, a guy said, well, listen, I'll pay you $5,000 to act it, to allow me to be a sponsor. He said, no, make it $10,000, because what I'm going to do is give $10,000 away, but you're going to get so much press being a sponsor that it's going to pay you dividends. And that's how he built his business. He kept just giving more and more and more away, and his channel just grew bigger and bigger and bigger. What is that thing that you have? It's such a wonderful time to be alive. And I'll say this often because it used to be to get on a television station, to create a channel, to do what we do on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, all these other vehicles, it would cost a lot of money. Now all we have to do is turn on our smart device, turn on our computer, and hit record. And we can broadcast our message out to potentially untold thousands, even millions, if we keep showing up. Guys, you have the opportunity right now to transform your life by simply continuously showing up with what it is your message is, whatever your product is. Because if you show up often enough, people are going to begin to discover you. There's probably somebody that tuned in for the first time today to watch this video of me talking, and they've never heard of me or anything before. but for the very first time, they're hearing the message. And that's because I keep showing up. They can go back and watch the other videos. A young lady in the on the YouTube channel found one of my shorts, and she says, "I love it. I just subscribed." You know what I'm saying? Somebody for the first time is hearing your message. Keep showing up. Now, I know some of you say, "Listen, I keep showing up. I've done hundreds, I've done thousands of videos, and nobody's showing up." I've looked at some of your channels just out of curiosity, and I can see where changes can be made that will allow your channel to grow beyond the 200, 300, even 800 where you seem to be stuck at. DM me, and I'll tell you what that thing is so that you can begin growing that channel out. My whole point is, if you keep showing up and you keep doing what you know to do, you don't know when it's going to happen. But one day, your audience is going to discover you. There was a gentleman that was doing YouTube videos, and he would do some creative drawing on the whiteboard and things like that. And he did it for years. And about 2 years ago, probably just after COVID, um, the man just took off. And so now he's got hundreds of thousands of followers and so forth. But for years, he only had less, than 1,000 followers. But he kept putting great content out there. There was a gentleman also by the name of Myron Golden. You go back and look at Myron's older videos, he was getting 200, 300 followers, people viewing his videos. Now he gets hundreds of thousands of people. He kept showing up. What about you, creator? You discover your audience pain point, their pleasure point, what it is that they want, and what it is that they don't want in their lives, and you begin to address that, showing them how to overcome by your own story, how you overcame that thing. Your audience isn't everybody. It never will be everybody. Don't try to reach everybody. But there's something that you've discovered on your journey. There's a gentleman out there, and he cuts grass. Only thing he does is literally go to people's, knock on people's door, and if it's an abandoned house, he says, "Who owns the house? Are you familiar who owns the house?" And they say, "Well, yeah, blah, blah." And he'll reach out to the person, "Do you mind if I clean up your yard?" He'll do this, and he's done this and does a beautiful job. And he has millions of followers. Now he promotes t-shirts and everything else because of how he discovered how he can help. There's somebody that needs help with something that you've discovered. As you begin putting yourself out there, the biggest thing that I said earlier on the first letter was trust. As you begin trusting God, source, universe, and you begin putting yourself out there, sharing your unique message, you're going to find your unique audience. And from that, you can begin not only changing their lives, you can also potentially change your own life. So get an accountability partner. And like I said, that may be a friend, an associate, it may even be a coach, whatever. Get yourself an accountability partner so that you can begin. And it may be you just tell them, "Okay, tomorrow I'm going to start doing that thing that I've been talking about for years." Start there. Okay, now you leverage. So we're talking and we're using the talents acrostic. So T was trust the process. A was accountability. Now we're going to leverage. I've been talking about it. You need to take what it is that you know. Now, the thing about in the parable, the gentleman that he had this talent of gold that would have lasted people lifetimes that he was trusted with. And he buried the talent. And he said, I told the executive, the owner of the business, that when he came back, he says, "Well, I knew that you were a shrewd man and that you would reap where you did not sow, blah, blah." He said, "If you knew all this stuff, why didn't you at least take my talents, my money, and put it in a bank or an institution, and I could have at least, if nothing else, received interest off of that." You have gifts. You have abilities, you have talents. And like I said, the problem is for most of us, because we're so close to what it is that we know, that we can't see it. It's like we talk about, the story of Abraham. Abraham, about ready to sacrifice his son Isaac. And there was a ram in the bush all the time. You have a ram in the bush. But because you're focused on the things that you seemingly can't do, or you're focused on your lack of money, or whatever it is that you're focused on, you can't see your talent. And it may require that you talk to somebody that's objective, that can step outside and look at you and have a conversation with you. I've talked to many people, and in having conversations with, I'm blown away with all the skills and the abilities that they have. Once we get done talking, their biggest challenge is focusing on the one thing that's going to get them started and not trying to do everything. I'm one of those people that, I just come up with so many creative ideas. I have to purposely shut myself down and begin just focusing on that one thing. Perhaps that's your challenge, being able to focus on that one thing, or just simply narrowing down that one thing. But I promise you, you do have that one thing and multiple other things. Absolutely. So paralysis, and understand this. B. Johnson was saying, paralysis of getting started. The other thing that I find with many clients is the paralysis of analysis. They keep overthinking. The wealthiest people in the world, what they've discovered is they fail fast and they fail often. You're like, failure, that's a bad word. Failure is nothing more than feedback. But if you don't take the necessary actions to find out what does and doesn't work, understand, we could talk about Edison, but everybody knows about the story of Edison and 10,000 tries and so forth. Colonel Haddon Sanders, Jeff Bezos, whomever you want to name, these people succeeded simply because they were willing to fail. Failure is nothing more than feedback, but society has made failure such a bad word that we won't even take action. So as B. Johnson said, I'm paralyzed, in just taking action, because our thought is, if I don't take action, I can't fail. No, you want to fail, and you want to fail often, but you want to fail fast. You want to find out, and let me explain that. You want to find out what works. As you find out what works and what doesn't work, when you find out what doesn't work, that's not a bad thing. You're taking a trip and you get to a junction and there's a detour. You don't say, well, I'm going to, forget the trip, because there's a detour. The detour just says, okay, let me use this analogy. Tyler Perry was once being interviewed, and he says he doesn't see failure. He says he sees himself in a maze, and what he sees is walls. Now, you say, well, why is seeing walls relevant? If you're in a maze and you hit a wall, then you say, okay, then I need to go a different direction. And as you keep hitting walls, you keep taking different directions until you get to your desired end. Don't see failure as the end. See it solely as a wall. Oh, that didn't work. Now, so what do I need to do? When you make up in your mind that you're going to succeed no matter what, at whatever it is that you've been given to do, and like I said, you got probably dozens, if not hundreds, of skill sets that most of the world doesn't know. And if you start combining them, we're talking about leverage right now. You start combining those skill sets and making them uniquely yours, you and 10 other people can know the same thing. You can come from the exact same environment, but nobody can do it like you do it. And the wonderful thing is you can add your own unique twist to whatever it is that you're doing. That's what's going to separate you from so-called competition. But the only competition we deal with is this right here. Once we can get out of our own way, then possibilities become infinite. So what we need to inquire is, God, source, universe, open up the eyes of your servant that I may see. See the vast opportunities around me that I can begin to take action on. And many of those opportunities around you won't cost a great deal of money. A lot of them will start with the stuff that you already know. It may start with you creating a $27 ebook to help people. I'm going to put this out there. You, as a man, you may discover how to overcome erectile dysfunction. For a lot of people, that's a challenge. You found a way. It may be a vitamin or something that you've taken. For a woman, how to lose those stubborn 5 pounds. Whatever that thing is that you've discovered, there's somebody out there that needs what you have. And why wouldn't I pay for a $27 ebook if it was going to transform my life? You understand what I'm saying? You have something, creator, but you can't keep burying your talents in the ground or keep putting them off to the future, because one day we're going to transition from this thing we call this version of reality or this version of life. Spirit will move on and take on, but you have so much time in this realm. Utilize the time more effectively. You know, and a lot of times in utilizing the time that you have in this realm, things happen. You know, people come up with debilitating diseases and so forth. What I'm telling you is utilize, redeem the time that you have. Don't take it for granted that you're going to always be vibrant, that you're going to always be able to do what it is that you're doing. Now is the appointed time of salvation. And what is salvation? Let's talk about this real quick. This is not you going and getting saved and being saved from hell. Salvation is deliverance from, to. So say Dr. Joseph Murphy used to say this. If it was say you're hungry. So at this moment of hunger, salvation is a hamburger. The moment you got that hamburger, you were saved from the condition of hunger. But when you're looking at the term salvation, when I say now is the appointed hour of salvation, what is it that you want to be, do, or have? Now is the appointed time to start acting upon that thing now, not later. We're often given, just lift not a finger. I think that there's a time for that. You're not trying to force. Me and another person on the YouTube channel got into a conversation because they were really trying to understand what it meant to not lift a finger. What you're not trying to do is force who it is that you're to be, do, or have. But let's say that hypothetically your being is, I want to be a millionaire. Then you have to begin learning the skill sets to begin managing money. And I say this because if $1 million just came to you and you did not have the skill sets to manage that $1 million, you're going to go through that $1 million as though it didn't even exist. And in most cases, you're going to be worse off than you were before you received the $1 million. The master teachers say, go thee and do that thing no more, whatever it was that you were doing previously, unless a worse thing happens to you. This is not, people want to blame universe, God, source for this. This is the byproduct of our thoughts, our words, our actions, our feelings, our states, our dispositions. And this is why, ancient texts would say, if you don't forgive your neighbor their trespassing, the divine within you, known as God, that infinite intelligence called you, won't forgive you. When you're sending out wave frequencies, vibrations of forgiveness, then of course, only thing you can receive back is forgiveness. But if you're sending out the contrary, then what you receive back is, of course, that which you're sending out. It can't be otherwise. You're a vibrational being having a human experience. This is relevant, and it's important that you understand I'm vibrating something all the time. I'm at a frequency all the time. And a lot of times we're not in frequency what it is that we say that we want. So of course we keep repelling or withdrawing its opposite to us. So leverage your skill sets of the stuff that you already know and say, how can I benefit the world? The goal shouldn't be just to make money. The goal should be service. The byproduct of great service is give, and it shall be given to you, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will people pour into your lives. So as you give, as ancient text says, it shall be given to you, but not only given to you, it's given to you multiplied. So whatever you're sending out returns multiplied. Be mindful of that. Whatever you're sending out returns to you. You can't sow a seed in the universe and not reap a harvest of that seed. That's how it works. So let's go on and move forward. So leverage. And I kind of touched on this, but when you discover that thing that you can give, that thing that you can benefit the world with, that thing that you discovered to say, oh, wow, never realized that before. Now you start sharing it with other people. You go the extra mile. You do it with excellence. One of the things that I was taught even before going into the military was when I was to do something, somebody gave me something, to give it back better, cleaner, if possible, than when you received it. And often being in the military, when we would go on, as we're being deployed somewhere, before we left where it was that we were deployed, we would do a field day. And that place was cleaner most time, unless there were other military people with the same mindset, was often cleaner than when it was when we got there. Whatever you're doing, don't just half-heartedly do it, but give it your best self. Do it with excellence. Become the expert in that thing that you're doing, and it will pay multiplied over and over and over again. And the other thing is, some people do things solely to get paid. And once that payment transaction is done, they're done. Why do I bring this up? There's a lot of people that offer services out there, for example, and they get your money, then you get into the particular service and you're like, wow, this wasn't what I expected. Matter of fact, it's subpar. It's their front was great, but once you got into the offer, you realize that it wasn't chalked up to be all that they said that it was going to be. Don't be that person. If you've had a bad experience, say, well, you know what? I'm going to offer better. I'm going to offer a better level of service. I'm going to give them a better experience. As you become the person, I promise you, people are going to start referring people to what it is that you are doing, what it was that you discovered in your journey, how you learned how to improve your life. Now you're improving the lives of others. But as you do that with excellence, people are going to put the word out. And people are going to come to you looking for that same experience. That's why somebody like Tony Robbins, over a 30-year period became a multi-billionaire. Prior to Tony Robbins becoming a multi-billionaire in the personal development space, it did not exist. People did not, they made a living in the personal development space. But I'll just call him Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins basically did something unheard of. He created this workshop, this thing, this machine, as it were, and he kept multiplying. But what he kept doing was, how can I make it better? When he was living in that single room apartment, washing dishes out of his bathtub, 38 pounds overweight, and he made a decision to change his life, he decided to do it with excellence. Do what you do from the best of your ability. How can I? It may not be perfect, and that's okay. That's not the goal is to keep improving. How can I perfect? How can I make this better? How can I do it better? And as that becomes the model, we're told to move from glory to glory. This is improvement. If you ever get to a place where you stop learning, you're in a place of decline or you're dying. You should never stop learning, growing, because what it tells your body, this is why I have a problem with the term called retirement. And for those who may be retired, I'm not casting shade, but when I see the word retirement, when I think about the term retirement, I think about now it's time to die. And so many people, when they take on the mindset, they've come out of corporate America, they've been hustle and bustle, they've been doing things, and all of a sudden they stop. It's an indicator to your body, since you've stopped and you've been on hustle mode for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, but now you've stopped, body says, oh, now it's time to shut down. And this is why so many people pass on shortly after the retirement, because they've given, their body the indicator that now it's time to shut down. And we've been sold this thing called retirement, but the body is made to stay in action. So what I'm not saying, if you retire, so-called, stay busy, get up, exercise, don't get in a recliner, get into some type of, and just stop doing. Because like I said, you're indicating to your body that it's time to shut down. Now, if you're ready to go and be with Father, then shut down. I'm not saying that as a criticism, but what I'm trying to tell you is your body's listening to your cues. So remain active, remain doing. I'm not saying you have to take on another job or something like that. What I'm saying is keep busy. Give yourself goals. Give yourself maybe a trip that you wanted to take, something that you've always wanted to do. Put that on your bucket list. Create giving yourself goals to work towards. Keep giving mind something to work towards. Don't just shut down and stop doing nothing. Years ago, and I say years ago, probably about 5, 7 years ago, I was talking to a coworker at the time. I was working in corporate America, and his mother was a school teacher, educated woman, and she took on the ideology of retirement and stopped doing everything. Her health declined, her livelihood, everything else just went in decline. He kept trying to encourage her, Mom, you got to do something. You can't just shut down. And her whole body basically went on a shutdown mode. So when I tell you that, I'm not just telling you that because off the top of my head, I'm telling you it's basically a cue. You see it with police officers. You see it with people in high impacting positions. Now all of a sudden they're doing nothing, and shortly thereafter, good to see you. Shortly thereafter, they're deceased. Neville talks about a guy that he had gotten all of his affairs in order. He was ready for retirement, and probably a few months into retirement, he died. Now, Neville said, but his wife was taken care of, but his goal was to spend time with his spouse and so forth and be in leisure, but he was probably in a very fast-paced environment, and all of a sudden that shut down. He quit doing all the stuff that he was accustomed to, and his system said, oh, it must be time to shut down. And like I said, shortly thereafter, Neville says the guy passed. So leverage what it is that you know. Operate from a place of excellence. Again, I'm coming from an acrostic using the word talents. So for those who come in a little later and so forth, you can go back and watch from the beginning and get everything. So now we're in nurture. So take 15 minutes a day. We talked about retirement and we talked about continuously growing and so forth. And get into, whether it be a Neville Goddard, Joseph Murphy, whomever your teacher is, and study 15 minutes a day. Watch videos. Think about what it is that you're watching. Say it differently than what it is. How would I say this in my own words? What you're doing is basically continuously building up your mind, your spirit, your body. So do that in every aspect of your life. Keep nurturing growth. Don't just get to a place and shut down. We talked about it, so I won't stay there. The next thing is going to be T in the talents acrostic. Take action. Many of you have been given something to do, and you've known for years that that's what you're supposed to be doing. And you've put it off, and you've put it off, and you put it off. There's going to be a day where you can't put it off anymore. Take action. And if you committed to taking action, do what it is that you've committed to do, because otherwise what you're going to do is reprogram yourself to not take action. B. Johnson was saying, one of the things, just paralyzed in taking action. Small actions. Take baby steps. It may be getting that domain name. It may be just signing up for that YouTube channel, that TikTok channel, whatever. Take the small step. And then another, let's say it's a workout. It may be going to the gym and just doing a couple of curls. Sometimes placing yourself in that environment makes all the difference in the world. You say, okay, well, since I'm here, I might as well do something. Take the first step. Many of us say, well, when the universe, God, source tells me everything I'll need to do, then I'll start. It never works like that. As you take the necessary steps, more is going to be given to you. You take the next step, more is going to be given to you. I don't know how many of you drive, most of you probably, but as you drive on a road, whether it be in fog or just night, you only can see a few feet ahead of you, but as you keep driving, then you see a little bit more, and then you see a little bit more. Your illumination takes place as you take action or as you drive. Take the necessary action. Do what it is that you know that you've been called to do. Don't stay locked in that place. And if you need assistance, if you need help, reach out to me. Maybe we can have a conversation, whatever. But take the necessary action. Next, The last letter is S. And this is being mindful that your steward, universe, God, source, energy, has placed in, has placed in your power only things that you can do. If you don't do what's been given to you to do, not what anybody else has been given to do, the world is going to be slightly unfulfilled because you did not fulfill your purpose. Now, will the world go on? Absolutely. But the version of God known as you will not experience. And I promise you, with us not being able to experience that, there's going to be that little piece of the world that we all miss known as you, because you never expressed and never did what divine intelligence source God told you to do as you. See, God is expressing himself, herself, itself through the lives of 8 billion people. One of them's called you. And if you don't express your version of God, the world will never experience that aspect. Listen, I'm not going to keep you. This is a little bit short. I normally go into the hour. I'm not going to do this for a whole hour because we're done. But listen, go back and listen to the video. We've all been given gifts and talents. If you want to know what those gifts or talents are, reach out to me. We can have a conversation and maybe kind of get you on track of being able to do what it is that you've always known that you should be doing. But this is Coach to Call. Until we speak next week, have a great and a wonderful Mother's Day and a wonderful day. Love you guys, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care.